as we start to examine what I call the power passages, you could have, and I always say this, you could have a brand new Corvette. But if you disconnect the fuel line and it's unable to get fuel to that Corvette, you got nothing. It's just a can. It's just a can sitting in the driveway. You need fuel for that Corvette to take off. And you can have the best basketball team. Of course, we know about that with the Cavaliers. But if you don't have a good coach, the whole team flounders or falls apart. You got to have something that'll propel that power in the right direction so you can be a winner. And men, whether you realize it or not, you're the power and the fuel in your immediate circle of influence. You're the power and the fuel in your family, on your job, in the community, men. And what gives you the power to execute in a meaningful type of way in terms of being contributors instead of liabilities in your community is the power that God has provided you. Not only has he provided you power, he's protected you from things that would actually overcome you. Not only has he's guided you, even if you don't see it, you're here at Harbor Lights, he's guided you. And here's the bigger thing. You ain't got to worry about with the baggage of the past. He's forgiving you for what you've done. Now what he's asking you to do is to realize and to recognize that this power is available to be used in every area of your life, as long as you give him the recognition and the rightful recognition that he provided you with this power. Now I said all that because we're about to get into the power passages. As I said, let's go to Romans, in terms of step number 5. Men, let's go to Romans. I think I said Romans chapter, what was that, 12? 3. Romans chapter 3. 3 and 11. I think, men, let's move a little bit further. We're going to do Romans chapter 13. And this power thing, let's put some vision on. Let's identify this power thing precisely. What is this power thing that we're talking about in terms of power passages that relate to the step itself? Romans chapter 13, verse 1. Tell the other men what page it's on, brothers. 11. Here we go. We're dealing with power. Now, it says here, let every soul, that means that leaves no one out. No one's left out. Be subject unto the higher power. Now there's a lower power, obviously, and there's a higher power. What's the difference between the lower power and the higher power? The way that we've been acting, the behavior we've been engaged in, the lifestyle we've been living was the lower power. But we still had, no mistake about it, we still had power. But he says, now that we're doing a recovery program, he says be subject to the what? To the higher power that'll take you to the higher level, to the next stage in terms of your life, in terms of benefit. And so he says that includes everybody. It says, subject unto the higher power. For there is no power but of God. Check how he gets plural on this, pluralistic. The powers, pluralistically speaking, that are ordained are of God. In other words, hey, check this out. In case you didn't get this, God is in control. He got this. He's in control. He's Lord of Lord, or whatever situation you're confronting with right now. He's King of King, and he'll deliver you from the challenge that you're being presently confronted with. If it's drugs, it only has power up to the point where you recognize that there's a power that comes from God that will release you from, deliver you from, and save you from that power you confronted with. Are you following what I'm saying? There's numerous powers. He gives us free choice to choose whether we want to be engaged in it. Matter of fact, I tell you what, if you don't believe that, let's turn to 1 Corinthians. I'm going to show you what he do. He makes a way of escape for everything. I think it's 1 Corinthians, maybe chapter, let's see here. I got to get with that. 1 Corinthians. We're going to talk about the powers. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. Then we're about to get into step number 13. Step number 5. Jerry, you know it ain't no step number 13. Why you let me say that, man? Ain't no step 13, but you can take it to the next level, man. You want to create a 13 step? Let's do it. Okay, here we go. 1 Corinthians. And me and why I'm coming to you is because I want you to understand why we're talking about, why we're concentrating on, why we're examining, why we're investigating this power aspect in terms of the step itself. In most recovery programs, you'll hear them only talk about the steps. You're not going to hear them talking about the power passages. But we're going to mix it up just like that. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13. Are we there, men? Are we there? Yeah. Every soul, are we there? Okay, here we go. You have a choice, brother. There it is, 13. There has no temptation. Now, we're going to be tempted when we come out of here. Whatever life that you've been a part of, drugs, alcohol, criminal-minded activity,
women, gambling, you name it, whatever it is, whatever, just the real gutty type, shiesty, whatever you want to call it,
crooked lifestyle that you was involved in, you're going to be just as tempted to be involved in it when you leave here. Fast money, you're going to want that when you leave it. You're going to want it. But you got to subject yourself to the higher power and understand and recognize that this is a temptation and it's fair in the game of life. But here's what he says. There is no temptation taking you, but such as common to man. But guess what? He's extraordinarily and he's over and beyond the mentality and of what man is capable. Are you following what I'm saying? So he says when it common to man, he's past the common, being commonly recognized as a man. Here's what he says, that's common to man. Let's go a little bit further than that. And then what he says, but God, here's the difference. He makes the difference in whatever you're being challenged by, whatever you're being tempted by, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, God makes the difference. Here's what he says, but God is faithful, always going to make a difference, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that which ye are able, but here he is making a difference again. But with that temptation, also make a way of escape. I'm out of this. I'm not robbing nobody. I'm not selling no drugs. I'm not going to do the things that's going to make me be back in jail. I'm going to go to work instead of get high. I'm going to follow through with the temptation. I'm going to spend the money instead of pay the rent for my kids. Instead of pay the kids for my wife and my kids to have a roof over their head. I've been in the penitentiary for maybe 1, 2, 3, however long you've been in the penitentiary, and I promised my wife that put the money on my books, that made several bonds for me, who to put her house up on the line so I could get out free, who came to visit me when nobody else would visit me, or my mother, and I made all these promises, Mom, that if you do this, when I get out, or wifey, when you do this, when I get out, I'm not doing that no more. I'm going to keep my promise, man. I'm going to make sure that they get what they got coming from me. If I'm tempted to go back out into the life, I'm not going to do it because God has provided me a way of escape. And he's bigger than whatever it is. He's bigger than whatever it is that I'm being challenged by. I got more coming to me than what I'm about to get engaged into. So here he goes and he finishes up. He says, with that temptation, you got to make the choice. There's a way of escape that you may be able to bear it. Now let's bear it to step number 5. On page 89. We're about to talk about the various temptations that we've discussed. You got that, Jerry? The various temptations, men, that we've discussed, and some of you men haven't been here, from steps 1 through 4. We've recognized, identified, and came face to face with all of those temptations that we've actually honestly examine in terms of step 1 through 4. And ain't a man in here can tell me that he isn't tempted in various and many ways, and those temptations have actually made themselves a stronghold in your life that have brought you into a recovery program, or has been identified by a probation or parole officer, or those temptations and that lifestyle that you've actually engaged in and been, I want to say, almost challenged by in a powerful type of way. Your wife has said you have to come here, or your girlfriend, or the family, the kids, or your boss might have said you'll come, or you got paroled here because your parole officer or the state has said, or the judge has said that you need to come here. All of us got temptations, but we about to find out. We've already talked about and examined what they were in terms of steps 1 through 4. So you have to do that. So anyway, here we go. In step number 5, admit it to who? God. Now we on a one-on-one relationship with God, the higher power. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact what? Nature of our wrongs. Yeah, I did it. I don't know why I did it. Do I want to continue to live like that? No, I don't want to live like that. But I'm trusting you, God, who's of the higher nature, the higher power, to deliver me and forgive me for what I've done. I tell you what, if you don't believe that he's capable of doing that in terms of that, and we'll move on a little bit further. But why am I nailing this issue of the nature of our wrongs, how we naturally who we are in terms of that lifestyle? I want you to turn to Romans chapter 5, and we're gonna move expeditiously, readily, fastly, Jerry. We're gonna move like a Corvette I just got through talking about in terms of going through the power passages, because we pretty much time is slipping away. Here we go. Romans. Do we wait for us? Do God wait for us? Man, he's always ready. I always had to say it's too late to get ready when you're supposed to be ready. God is always ready. If you ain't ready, he's ready to deliver you. All you got to do is recognize and realize that he's there to do just that. Because he's Lord over that situation. Here we go. Romans chapter 5, verse 8. Are we there? But God commended his what toward us? He made his love available and accessible to us. But we have to make the choice to embrace it. But then he goes a little bit further than that. Check this out. No matter what you've done, no matter how simple or separated you've been from God, been with God, God is ready to forgive you, and he has a plan of salvation and deliverance for you from whatever that stronghold is. Whatever it is, he has a plan of escape for you. But here's what he says. He says, check this out. Was you ready? Maybe not. But he says, while you were yet sinners, while you was engaged, name some of the stuff that you was engaged in. We found out what that was in terms of steps 1 through 4. Whether it was drugs, alcohol, gambling, stealing, loan sharking, drugs, whatever it may have been, while you were still engaged in that, what he says, while you was yet sinner, he made love and deliverance and a way of escape accessible and available to you. Just consider the possibility that there's a better way to live. Just consider. He says, while you were still doing what you was doing, he gave you a door, presented you a door of love and escape from that. And so we're going to talk about that in terms of our power passages. And how did he do that? He says, why? Because, hey, Christ died for us through his death, burial. And what he did was, and it ain't so much that he died, but what he did is he overcame death. When we looked at this tomb, of course, the tomb was empty. He was no longer there. And he had power even over death. And push come to shove, you may not think that that's a significant thing, but I want to make this death thing, that Christ had power over death, relevant to you. And not so much to have church, but I want to go through these steps, the power passages. How many guys in here, if you think death is irrelevant and it's not real? I remember one time when I came home from the army, I OD'd. I was at home smoking that, we called it angel dust then. And I didn't know it, but I'm short of the long years. I was on the gurney. I can remember a few people that was there, but then they slipped me into the paddy wagon. What do you call that? The ambulance. And the guy was talking to me, and I can kind of remember he was saying, I had just come home from Texas. And the guy was saying, don't you know such and such? But really he was talking me through it so I wouldn't black out. I wouldn't go. I could look back on it and see it now. So he was holding a conversation. I was like, yeah, I know such and such. I just left Texas, and he didn't know that guy, and I didn't know. But he was talking me through it. The worst thing, when a person OD, the one thing you don't want them to do is to black out on you, and that's it. So then he talked me through, and I'm saying this, you could apply it any way you want to, but all of us was looking at death in one way or another. But here's what he did. They took me to St. Luke's Hospital, and I remember laying on the gurney, and I remember my mother there, my auntie had came, and my father was there. And the doctor told my parents that ain't nothing else we could do for him, And I'm laying there on the gurney, and I looked up. You see all the holes in that ceiling? I started counting the holes. And I could actually see, honest to God, I could actually see my body. My body was there, but I could see from on the top everybody that was in the room. It was like an out-of-body experience. I could see my mother, my father, I could see my aunt, I could see everybody around me, but it was like I wasn't in that body. And then I said to myself, or whatever it was that was allowing me to be conscious, or whether it was God, the spirit or whatever that was allowing me to be conscious, said start counting those holes in the ceiling. And if anybody know those old-time ceiling tiles, they had a lot of little holes in them, and I just started counting them. And I remember the doctor said, and I made it, and I made it up out of that. So why do I tell that story? And I can remember when I was a kid, stuff that I would do that was death-defying. That's what I like to do. But the point of it is, and that's what I'm saying, a lot of you guys, when you give up that stuff, you're still going to be that energetic, dynamic person. And I'm still like that. But here's the deal. Most of us have faced death on various levels. My story ain't extraordinary. If you think about some of the stuff that you did, your mother, your father, your wife, or whatever would worry every night whether or not you was going to come home. Because they knew the stuff that we was involved in, the rightful justice, the justification behind that would be actually death. And it's amazing how a lot of us are still here in this room, and it's nothing but for the grace of God that all of us, every last one of you men here are miracles of God. What God does while we were yet sinners. Christ died for us. So when we say the empty tomb, not only the tomb was empty for him, but guess what? Think about, and I'm well, camera, I really can't tell you some other stuff, but here's the deal. I know there's some people that did a lot less than what I did that's dead. And I'm telling you, the tomb that you should have been in, each and every one of you men should have been in for the stuff that we did, it's empty. It's a lot of people that's probably waiting and saying, you know what, I wonder what he's still doing alive. How did he, how many guys know some girlfriends saying, man, I thought he would have been dead a long time ago. Or you know, kids say, Poppy, don't go. Daddy, don't go. Why, how about this one? How many guys remember the wife said, a girlfriend said, don't go, and you end up getting arrested or in jail? You said, man, I'd listened to her. And I wish I'd have listened to her. But that was just, and you in the police car, you thinking like this, dang. Yeah, there it is. We do that blaming thing. We do that blaming thing. But what I'm saying is, while we were still engaged, my point, I want to bring it back home in terms of the power passages. I always say it's too late to get ready. God is always ready. And if any one of you, I don't have my chains and none of that stuff on me, but whatever it takes for you to realize that there's an empty tomb, that had we got justice instead of mercy, each and every one of us would rightfully deserve to be in that tomb. We've done some stuff that death is really almost it's justifiable in terms of what we've done. So anyway, let's go there. We admitted to God, to ourselves, to another human being, the exact nature. And here's what we do. We're ready. We're bigger than where we came from, because here's the step in terms of the power passage. It says here, we go from James chapter 5, verse 16. Therefore, confess your sins to each other and pray for each other so that you may be healed. We need to be healed, man, of that mindset, those behaviors, those patterns that we engaged in. And I can go through, are we in Romans right now? Let's look at Romans chapter 14, and then we're gonna go with these power passages on how to get the fuel that's necessary to carry out admitting to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our own, in terms of step 5, that being the principal concept, the principle of step number 5. Let's look at this issue about sin. I believe I want to say it's in Romans chapter 14, verse 23. Let's get a better grasp on the concept of sin. Well, of course we did when we did get a better understanding of it as we did steps 1 through 4. But here it is. What is sin? Tell the other men what page is on, man.
11, 12.
There we go. Okay, here we go. Chapter 14 of Romans, verse 23. And he that doubteth is damned if he eat. You know, God gives us a sense of, you know what, a suspicion and doubt. And, you know, how about this one? How about this one, man? How about this one in terms of us being tempted? How many guys can say, you know what, I should have followed my first thought. I wouldn't have been in this. Am I the only one that ever been in that situation? What do you think? I could think of numerous times that had I followed my first thought, stuff wouldn't have happened. And so he says, he gives us that sense of doubt. That's that spirit that he puts in us. But here he goes. He says this, and I want to make it relevant, and he that doubted is damned if he do. People say, I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. But you got that doubt because it's telling you that if you go through with this, the outcome is not going to be to your benefit. He says, and eat it, because he that eateth not in faith, for whatever is not of faith is sin. And we could just apply that in a lot of different ways. I just thought I'd throw that at you just to give you a sense of understanding when we said the doubt makes it really relevant. It gives you handlebars where you can grab on this thing about sin. And I can go a little bit further than that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the power passages like expeditiously and run through those, give you a better sense of understanding.